Oh boy, I am excited about this topic. The number one unfair and legal way to be able to get a competitive advantage over everyone else in your industry. We're talking about it right now here on the Fearless Investor Podcast. Hey, welcome into the Fearless Investor Podcast, everyone. This is Kyle Stanley. And before we go any further today, if you're watching this today, as this is being released, if you're listening to it on the podcast, it is Thursday, April 22nd, and we are having a free, absolutely free webinar that is going to teach you how to build an Airbnb business with only using 3 hours per week. It's called, so literally the name of the webinar is going to be how to start and build an Airbnb business with only 3 hours per week and without you having to own the property. So if that has your interest, first of all, listen to this podcast, watch this YouTube video. We've got a lot of important and really valuable things to talk about today. But if that interests you, you're going to do one very simple thing. You're going to run over to Instagram and you're going to DM me on Instagram at Fearless Kyle. And you're going to say, Kyle, I watched or listened to the podcast today. I want to be a part of that group. And if you're not on Instagram, you can go over to Facebook. So if you're not an Instagrammer and you're like, well, I don't know how to do that, go over to Facebook, add yourself to the Facebook group that we have that's absolutely free. It's Airbnb Masterminds. You can just go to Facebook, search Airbnb Masterminds, or you can go facebook.com/groups/Airbnb Masterminds. And the link is right in there on the wall. You can absolutely just register right there. If you don't have either of those, get on those. It's free. It's absolutely free to get those, and it's free to be able to be a part of these webinars. So with that being said, I really am excited today about our topic. Oh, no, but by the way, almost forgot to mention that's tonight at 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. If you are not watching this today, if it's past 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, past April 22nd on 2020 and 2021, then it's okay because we're doing that all the time. And all you have to do is go over to Airbnb and join that, Facebook and join that Airbnb Masterminds group. And I'm posting all the time in there when the next webinar is going to be, and would love to be able to have you on. So anyway, today, the number one way to gain a competitive advantage over everyone in your industry, okay? That is what I'm super excited about. And we're talking about it as an unfair advantage for a specific reason. And I want to talk to you about what made me get to this point of doing the research for this topic, because this is not just my opinion. This is actually research that I did. And so first of all, a couple of days ago, I was like, this would be a really good topic. And I started kind of thinking about what my idea of what I wanted to talk about. And then I was like, wait a second. This is exactly that. It's just my opinion. Just because I say this doesn't mean it's true. It's true to me, but it may not be true to other people. And I want to give you, the audience, the best information on this topic. So what did I do? I thought about the top 25 people that I know in real estate. And I would say about 22 to 23 of them responded. And I sent them all the same message. I'm going to read that message for you right now. So if I go back to this message, the question that I sent to everyone was, hey, I've got a quick question for you. I'm recording a podcast and it's going to be called The Number One Unfair and Legal Competitive Advantage to Grow Your Business. I originally knew what I wanted to share as that reason, but I wanted to see what you think too. Can you let me know which of these you think is the biggest attributing factor to your success? And I did not tell them what my opinion was because I didn't want to mold what they were going to say. I didn't want them to go into the defense or agreeable mode. I wanted them to give a completely unbiased opinion. And so what I gave them is 7 different options. Number 1, the availability of money. 2, education and mentorship. 3, collaboration with other industry leaders. 4, daily habits. 5, your team, known as also employees and contractors. 6, your work ethic. 7, your reason or your why. And then I give them an 8th. And I said, what about something else? Maybe something I did not include in there. Is there something that you would say would be more of a contributing factor? And here's what the results were. So actually, before I get to results, I want to break it down for you. So I sent this message, and then as people started giving, they didn't just pick one. they started giving me explanations. Some got me on the phone, some were giving me voice text, some were writing out long things, and they were basically saying why they felt this way and why they felt so strongly about this one that they were picking. And so it got me thinking, well, two of those options are actually internal. They're things that you, the audience that are listening in right now or watching, you yourself may not be able to duplicate that. And so in order for us to become fearless investors and to go out there without any fear, we have to remove the idea of, well, they're special because, well, they're able to do that because of this reason. And so I thought about it and I was like, there's two of those that I think if we heard that, our audience would be like, well, that's their special thing and that's why they're successful and that's not me, so I'm going to move on. And I didn't want to give you guys that excuse. I didn't want to give you any reason to be able to say that. So what I did is I'm just taking the idea of two of those options. One is your reason and your why, and two is your work ethic. I believe both of those are internal and they come from within, and they're very difficult from another person to teach to you. So for that reason, I'm adjusting this message a little bit. So the work ethic to me comes from a strong why. If I look at someone and I say they don't have a strong work ethic, what I'm essentially saying is they don't have a strong enough reason why they would want to have a strong work ethic. So someone is not lazy because they're innately lazy. They're lazy because they don't have a reason for wanting to do anything. I guarantee you that same lazy person, if they were to have a gun held to their head and that person said, either go and make $1 million in a business in the next 5 years, or I'm going to shoot you dead in 5 years. What's that person probably going to do? They're a short from doing the whole Breaking Bad thing and like getting a new identity and going into what is that? I forget the name of it. Where the government basically protects your identity and you change your name and you go into government housing. Basically, I can't think of the name. Anyway. Aside from that, if they had no other choice, they would have to go and figure it out and learn how to make $1 million business. And I'm willing to bet that strong enough reason why is going to get them into action. Maybe it's not the gun being pointed at their head. Maybe it's the gun being pointed at the loved one's head. Maybe it's the gun being pointed at their dog. Like, for God's sakes, there's going to be something there, right? That why that gets them going. And suddenly, before you know it, this lazy person has suddenly got the biggest work ethic in the world. So for this reason, I think those are both directly tied together. And I also believe that if you go through, and this before, again, I'm telling you all this before we actually go into it. I believe that if you go through the 7 layers of why and you are not motivated enough, then there just hasn't been enough of a pain in your life that you either have had or are missing out on to ever get yourself into action. Okay. So I'm taking this, and the 7 layers of why is you ask yourself, why do you want to do something? And you ask yourself why again and why again and why again. Well, we talked about a lot. Hey, I want to make $1 million. Why do you want to make $1 million? Because I want to be able to have financial freedom. Why do you want to have financial freedom? Okay. You ask that to yourself 7 different times. So those two being internal, okay, are obviously unfair advantages. I think those are obviously unfair advantages. However, they're not duplicatable. They're not something that I can teach you right now. And in order for me to teach you, I need to share with you, first of all, I've always struggled with my why, but in struggling with my why and always asking myself why am I doing this? Why am I doing this? Why am I doing this? It's always helped me to be able to identify things that will give me a strong work ethic. So we're going to assume for a second today that you already have a strong why, which probably means that it's already gotten you into action, which means that's why you're listening to this podcast. You wouldn't be listening to this podcast if you didn't have some level of a good work ethic, because you want to do something different with your life, right? So anyway, that's how I've adjusted it. All right. And then I gave it a point system. So going back to the message, I asked them this message. I asked them all these things. Many of them came back with many different answers. Excuse me. And so I decided I'm going to give this a points value. A lot of people say, well, it's this, but it's also this. And so if they said the number one thing was this, but then they followed up with the number 2 thing. I gave the number 1 thing 2 points, and I gave the next number 2 thing 1 point. So it was a points value. And here was the results. So of the 20 that I asked, the least, which was really interesting to me, only one person said that your team is important to your unfair advantage. And that only got 1 point because they said that second. They said it wasn't even the most important thing. Only one person said the availability of money was the unfair advantage, which, man, I think that's a pretty unfair advantage, right? Then only 2 people actually said the why. So even though I took that out, it wasn't like this major top of the charts, like, hey, definitely a strong why. Only a couple people said why. So that got 4 points total. Next up, only a few said collaboration. I was really interested on that because I think collaboration is so huge. So that also only got 4 points. Then tied for second was a combination between work ethic, which we said is tied to your reason why, which is internal. And we're just assuming today that your work ethic is strong because you have a strong why. That's why you're here, and that's why you're listening. And tied for second with work ethic is a very similar concept, which is daily habits. Okay. Daily habits was tied for second. Then when I gave the other option, a couple people said mindset, one said risk, one said confidence in yourself. So there was a few people that said that, but the absolutely hands down number 1 thing that almost everyone agreed at either the first or the second level was education and mentorship. That I got a whopping 16 points. The tied for second, habits and work ethic, got a tied 7 points. 16 points to education and work ethic. And it was exactly where I wanted to take this conversation, because I believe the number 1 way that you can get a competitive advantage against anyone in your industry is if you have a strong resource for education or a straight up mentor that's going to give you the answers right there. And that's why I'll never stop investing in myself. And this is where this topic came from. I just dropped $6,000 into education for an Airbnb mastermind that I'm going to be a part of, that is going to help me basically go from almost completely automated to completely automated. Like, I'm taking this thing to the next level to where I become so basically like entrepreneur status. And when I say entrepreneur status, I'm referring to the E-Myth, which is a great book, where I'm not, this business is able to grow. It's able to work on its own without me having to check in, without me having to monitor, without me having to do pretty much everything or anything at all. And so in doing that, I'm like, man, I've always been such an advocate for education, but why? And it got me thinking, it's because, well, it's such an unfair advantage for me to say I have, call it the mindset that I am not the best, that I am not the one that knows everything, but I'm going to go find that person and I'm going to go past all the mistakes. I'm not going to make their mistakes. I'm going to do just like what Warren Buffett says, and I'm going to learn from mistakes, but they are not going to be my own mistakes. How unfair and legal and awesome is that I can basically get the cheat code. Think about it when you were like playing, N64 and PlayStation. I think N64, they had the cheat pack. For those of you that are under 30 years old, you're like, what in the world are you talking about? They had a cheat pack that you could literally attach to the controller, and it would, like, on the 007 game, it gave you like all these like ultra big guns that no one else could have. And it gave you the routes. It gave you like all these like boosters. It gave you everything. And that's what mentorship and education is all about. It's literally like putting that cheat pack on the back of your controller and going straight up to success. And again, but assuming that you have the strong why and the work ethic to be paired with that, because if you just get the education and the mentorship without that, it's nothing. It's absolutely nothing. So I want to kind of tie all this all together, because I know a lot of you are probably like, well, yeah, but, and okay, I see your point, but, and so here's my debate. Here's my defense on all this. So what's important? What's important? Your why is important. We've already established this. What is an absolute must? An absolute must, if you're going to make anything work, is going to be work ethic. It's going to be daily habits, and it absolutely is a good team. Okay. And absolutely needs money too. You have to have money to be able to grow something. You have to have a good team if you want to grow something. You have to have the great daily habits and the right work ethic. So all of these options that I gave to people when I asked them, what do you think, were all viable, important things. And so after an important must or an important why and a must of having work ethic, daily habits, a good team, the education and the mentorship become that unfair advantage because they feed into everything. They take your good team, they take your daily habits, they take your work ethic, they take your ability to get money, they take your why, and they boost it. They put that cheat pack on the back and they just fly it up to the moon. Okay. So let's break this down one by one. Education is the umbrella that boosts it. But what about raising money? Well, you cannot raise money unless you know what in the world you're going to do with that money. If I go to someone and I say, hey, give me $100,000 and I'm going to turn it into $110,000 and help me start a business. Okay. How are you going to do that? I have no idea. That's not a good place to start. I teach all of my students, hey, you're getting into Airbnb, you're starting arbitrage, you're starting co-hosting, you're starting ownership. You got to sell yourself to someone. You got to sell yourself to a landlord most of the time or a leasing agent. And they're going to ask you, what is your experience? Well, I personally am a startup. I'm a brand new business, but we're being consulted and taught by one of the top industry leaders in our, one of the top leaders in our industry. And for that reason, we're going to be able to make all the best decisions and have all the best resources and the best things to be able to make our business as successful and smooth as possible. Cheat pack. Okay. See that? All right. Next. So collaboration. Well, are you going to collaborate with someone that has zero value to bring, that has zero added knowledge of a certain subject? No. I sat around with a number of guys at a lunch the other day here in Fresno, and they're you've got wholesalers, you've got creative financing, you've got realtors, you got another wholesaler, you've got another Airbnb guy, you had, let's see, who else was there? You had a guy that was doing a little bit of everything. There's all these different people, but they all had their thing. And one was also a landlord, a long-term landlord that was especially dealing with evictions. And we all had our thing that we could teach each other. So we mastermind over lunch and some great barbecue. And we talked about like, here's what's going on in my industry. And then it led to this person asking, well, what are you doing? And then they go back and say, well, what are you doing? And this collaboration is happening because they have value to bring. You're not going to find at that table someone who's just a fly on the wall and taking notes and not adding any value. They're not getting invited to that lunch. So if you don't have value to bring, which comes from education, right? Which comes from doing it yourself or learning from someone else, then you don't have the ability to collaborate. That is my humble opinion. Then when it comes to your why and your work ethic, you cannot support your why without the knowledge of how to take the next step. Okay. You have a great why. You want to be with your family. You want to be able to, maybe you've got an alien wife. I just had Noble Crawford on my show. What an amazing why. The guy had an alien wife who didn't even look like she was going to survive. And he was at a job that he was getting paid really well. But literally after 2 weeks of being gone to care for his wife, who he didn't even know was going to survive, he came back and they were ridiculing him for being away from work for so long. There is no stronger why than being with your family and being pushed away from a job that no one cares about you. Okay. So with that being said, what did he do? He went out and he learned how to do this whole arbitrage thing in Texas. And it was supported, the education supported the ability to make the why possible. Okay. And then because the why was so strong, he got into action, and that's where the work ethic comes from. All right. Hopefully this is all making sense. Hopefully I'm making a good case for this. You cannot create daily habits without learning from someone who's already done it. Okay. Or if you want to do it the hard way, the long way, you're going to basically learn from your failed daily habits. So which is faster? Which is going to get you to your goals quicker? Which is going to be that cheat pack that you can put on the back of your N64 controller that will take you straight up to success? Is it going to be learning from your own failed daily habits, or is it going to be going straight to a 7 or 8 or 9 figure business owner and saying, what do you do every day? I am going to pay you right now $1,000 right now. I'll buy you lunch too. Sit down, tell me what you do every single day. Start from 5 a.m. when you're waking up, or 6 a.m. and take me all the way through. And there's your cheat pack. Okay. It's education from the source, from the mentor. Okay. Again, you could go do it on your own, but aren't you still learning? Isn't that still education? Okay. That's kind of what I'm thinking here is, whether you want to call it education or mentorship or just learning from your mistakes, the word learn or educate is still in there. All right. You cannot create a team without learning how to be a great leader. How many of you were born great leaders? How many of you were born introverts? How many of you were born extroverts? How many of you were born good people? How many of you were born bad people? The answer to all that is none of the above. That is my absolute strongest opinion. And I'm very, very sound on this, in the fact that we are formed into the people that we are. We are not born certain people. We are formed into certain people. Now, maybe you have a chemical imbalance that's going to, guide you towards something else. But, great example of this, I was just in a clubhouse room with Jay Massey the other day. He admitted that he actually is autistic and has ADHD. What a great excuse for someone to not build a business. I don't have good people skills, so I'm not going to be able to lead a team. And I don't have the attention span to focus on something for more than a couple minutes. No, he used those as advantages instead. He said, I'm going to try to figure out how I can use this to my advantage so that he talked about delegating rather than quote unquote leading, which is just another name of leadership. And in doing so, he created an amazing team. And absolutely, he was able to figure out the ADHD thing and be able to focus on one thing. Now he has an incredible Airbnb and education business and real estate business on top of that. Another friend of mine, Stratton Brown, he literally gets anxiety when he's not doing something. So rather than let that anxiety paralyze him, he keeps himself so stinking busy so that he's just always producing to keep his anxiety low. All right. So what I'm saying is there's chemical imbalances that we're all built with. Okay. But don't let that be your excuse. Let it be your reason. Let that be the thing that propels you, and teach yourself through education how to be a great leader. Pick up a book from John Maxwell, listen to a podcast from John Maxwell, the father of leadership of our time. Even if it's free, it's still an unfair competitive advantage because you're probably one of the only people in your industry that's actually picking that up and reading it and taking the time to grow your mind. How awesome is that? And that leads me to the next one, which is mindset. Mindset is a training process. Trainings are best done with a mentor. Did you get really good at your sport by going out there and swinging, for me, swinging a baseball bat and just trying to figure it out? No. I still remember my first lesson like it was yesterday, and the coach telling me, swing down the mountain and then come through in the valley. Like swing down the mountain and come through in the valley. It was right here. Now today it's different in baseball. Everyone's doing the launch angle stuff. But back then, that helped me to literally go from a baseball player that didn't know what he was doing to one of the better players on the team. And it happened like that. It was the cheat pack. It was a mindset, right? It was before try to hit the ball to a mindset of come down the mountain and through the valley. Okay. That was taught to me through a mindset, through a mentor. Risk. This was an interesting one for me. The guy who told me that it was taking risks. I really know what he means by this, but what I want to do is I want to kind of translate it for you. Risk sounds like a scary word. And yes, uncalculated risks, blind risks are absolutely scary, but taking calculated risk is absolutely one of the best ways to grow a business. But once again, do you want to learn those risks, those calculated risks, by learning the hard way, by taking blind risks? Or do you want to add that cheat pack on and talk to the mentor and take the course that shows you, hey, I did this deal the wrong way. Don't do this. Here's how it was a blind risk. Now let's teach you how to go take a calculated risk, the cheat pack. Okay. And then lastly, confidence. Here, getting deep here. Confidence, I want to connect the dots here. To me, here's where confidence comes from. Confidence is built from success, right? If taking it back to baseball, if I strike out every time, I don't have a lot of confidence. If I hit a home run, if I even get a base hit, if I hit the ball hard, a little bit of confidence is built. A little bit more confidence is built because I do it again. I hit another home run. I feel a little bit more confident. So how do I get better at hitting home runs? Well, I got to practice more often, right? So in order to practice and learn more about down the mountain and through the valley, what is that? That is a daily habit. It's a mindset and a daily habit. And where do our daily habits, as we discovered, come from? They're learned either from you failing and doing it again until you find success, or through a mentor. Okay. So if you want to have self-confidence, reverse engineering this, okay, we have to have more success, which means we have to practice more often, which means that we have to learn the daily habits and the mindset to practice properly. And we learn those daily habits and mindset through mentorship, which gives us the boost, which gives us the cheat pack. Okay. So this is why I believe that education and mentorship is the number one way to unfairly and legally blow up your business. Simple as that. I hope I made a good case. Comment on this video. Let me know if you think that I'm right or if I'm wrong. I want to hear what you think. Again, this is an opinion. This is not the end all, but I think I made a pretty good case. With that being said, if you want to educate yourself, once again, if you're watching this before 6 p.m., April 22nd of 2021, you are able to join our free webinar tonight, Pacific Standard Time, 6 p.m. If April 22nd is not the day that you're watching this, it's okay. You'll have other opportunities. All you got to do, either go and DM me at Fearless Kyle on Instagram, or go to our Airbnb Facebook page. It's Airbnb Masterminds. Both of those places are great opportunities to find out when the next webinar is and how you can be a part of it for free and learn and add that cheat pack to your N64 controller. I hope this has helped you today to conquer the world of investing. We'll see you next time on The Fearless Investor. Thank you so much.